You're listening to the Drone Advantage podcast. This is your first-class ticket to aerial intelligence. Infrastructure doesn't fail all at once. It fails slowly and quietly when nobody's looking. Problem is, looking takes time. It takes money, and it's risky. Whether we're talking about bridges or water towers or cell phone towers or transmission lines or stormwater drains or systems, inspection teams are working with limited budgets. They have limited access because some of these places are really hard to get to, and the infrastructure is just getting older. But drones are changing all of this. See, instead of putting people in harm's way or waiting until something fails, cities and utilities are now getting accurate, high-resolution data in just a fraction of the time, with no downtime and limited risk or exposure. I'm Rob. I'm a commercial airline pilot. I'm a FAA certified 107 pilot. I'm the owner of the Tampa Bay franchise of Blue Nose Aerial Imaging. You're listening to the Drone Advantage podcast, and we're here to break down how aerial data is helping businesses, and in this case, cities and agencies, make smarter decisions. Today, we're going to talk all about how drones are transforming infrastructure inspections and making them safer and faster, more affordable, and more consistent. Okay, here's what we're covering in this episode. First, we're going to look at we're going to look at the most common challenges of traditional infrastructure inspections, especially around safety and access and labor costs. Then we're going to look at how drone imaging is helping solve these problems, the types of data we capture, and how that data gets used. Finally, we're going to break down the financial and operational impact. What kind of ROI are drones actually providing to clients, and what are clients actually seeing from infrastructure inspections? Now with that, at the end of the episode, if you're on YouTube, you're going to see, and I'm going to wait till the end of the episode for those of you on audio-only podcast, but at the end of the episode, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go through some of these digital twins that we model with this data. If you are on an audio-only podcast, again, this is one of these that you might want to hop over at the end anyway. You can still listen to this in the car on the way home or on the way to work. But when you have time, you might want to hop over to YouTube and watch the video as well, because like I said, we are going to be showing the screenshots, or not screenshots, but I'm going to actually walk through some of these things with you on the screen. If you like the information that you're getting from my podcast, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click that bell for all the notifications, and leave me a comment below. Let me know what you'd like to see in the future. We'll talk about more about that at the end. So the problem with inspections, the first problem with inspections is that they are necessary, right? We don't get to choose to not inspect our infrastructure, but they are a logistical headache, right? A lot of infrastructure is super hard to reach. So think of like stormwater channels or rooftops or elevated tanks, towers. Some of this stuff, you need specialized crew that are trained for climbing. We need lift trucks or might need scaffolding built. We need climbing and fall protection material equipment. And sometimes we need permits. All of this stuff costs time, causes delays, and it's expensive, especially if you have to get permits. It just drives the cost of everything up. And then there's the safety piece. I mean, again, anytime you're putting someone on a ladder or a harness or near live power, you're increasing liability. Think of cell phone towers and RF exposure, right? So all of this just increases risk of health and safety and liability. So, in addition, a lot of these aren't even high fidelity inspections, right? It's just somebody, snapping a couple of photos, making a couple of notes, and we're going to talk about a little bit later, we're going to talk about really the real advantage of inspections isn't just to see if something's wrong. There's another big advantage. No spoiler alert here. Okay. Then we factor in the aging infrastructure, right? Most municipalities are dealing with an entire backlog of deferred maintenance, whether it's tight budgets or or the money's just not there, so things get skipped or they get delayed, the can gets kicked down the road. And this leads to just bigger problems, right? Failures, lawsuits, emergency repairs. Think of, if you guys remember that bridge that collapsed in Minneapolis, the I-35 bridge in Minneapolis in 2007. That was just a failure of that bridge. What about the building north of Miami that collapsed a couple of years ago? Again, just a structural failure. These are things that we could have caught with regular documented inspections. And this isn't necessarily people not doing their jobs, right? It's that they don't have a better way to do the jobs. But drones fix that. So let's talk about what drones bring to the table. First, they get eyes on those hard to reach places without using any scaffolding or lifts or confined space entry. That alone will reduce your costs and your setup time and your exposure and risk and liability, right? But secondly, you're getting high resolution imagery and or video, depending on what you desire, from angles that are just impossible to get from the ground, or very difficult to get if you have to get there, whether it be climbing or confined space entry or lifts or whatever it is. So if you're inspecting a tower or a bridge beam or a flood basin or roof, whatever, we can get on top of that. We can get a top-down view of that. We can get a bottom-up view of that. We can get oblique views. We can get everything in between. And that's actually, all of these views are how we build these digital twins. And again, we're going to get to that at the end of this episode. So for large sites, we can even map these things, whether it be with 2D, or we can build 2D orthomosaic maps, or we can build 3D models. And what's great about mapping is we get to do progress tracking with mapping, or just changes over time. And that way we can prioritize repairs, because not every piece of damage needs to be fixed immediately, right? You may have a low priority repair, some medium priority repairs, high priority repairs. We can annotate all of this on the digital twin and the photos, and then when we track over time, if you're getting quarterly or semi-annual or annual inspections on this piece of infrastructure, and we have 2 or 3 data sets, and we can look, this is what it was like last July, and this is what it's like this month, and this is what it was like a year ago, and we can see how that hairline crack is now getting bigger. And it was a low priority concern, now it's a medium priority concern, or maybe now it needs to get fixed right away. So these are things that, these are some of the advantages. Really, it's not just about taking pictures and just seeing if there's something wrong through the pictures. It's about collecting the data, having the permanent record, and being able to track change over time. And then with RTK and PPK technology, if you have an RTK or PPK enabled drone, and if you don't know what that is, I'm going to put a link up here to a video. In my construction video, about 8 or 8.5 minutes into the video, I really go into what RTK and PPK is, the position correction. So if you don't know what it is, go up here, watch this video, but I'm not going to explain it here because it's kind of out of the scope of this episode. But it makes all of the mapping and modeling georeferenced, and it's measurable now, right? So now we can measure the width of that crack. We can measure the length of the crack. And then we can annotate that on the model. And then again, like I said, next time we do the inspection, we can remeasure that crack and see if it's gotten bigger, longer, wider, or whatever the case may be. So one of the big keys in doing this is the ability to be repeatable. It's the ability to fly the exact same flight every single time and take the exact same photos every single time. And that repeatability is key to progress tracking and reporting, right? So and then in addition, speaking of reporting, because the data is digital, it's easy to store. It's shareable. It's easy to annotate. You can set up permissions where certain people can annotate the data, change, remove, or add annotations, And then whether you're dealing with city engineers or utility managers or any kind of regulatory body, it's all there in a central location. It's very easy for anybody that needs access to it to be able to get to it. Okay, so here's where we see the biggest impact. Cities are using drone inspections for things like stormwater systems, channels, culverts, retention ponds, spillways. These are very difficult to inspect on foot. And after a storm or any kind of heavy rain, sometimes these things are impossible to inspect by foot. But what we can do is if we have baseline either mapping or imagery, and then shortly after a storm we can go up and we can, when that terrain is not traversable, you can't go out there, we can still fly a drone out there and capture that data immediately and do an accurate assessment on the extent of damage if there is any damage. Utilities are using drones for substations and power poles and communication towers. We're inspecting these things without having to climb. We don't have to have the boom or the lift truck or the scaffolding or the fall protection equipment. We don't have to have, the RF meter, and we don't have to be exposed to the radiation any longer than we have to be. If a cell tower needs a repair and it was inspected traditionally, a climber has to climb that cell tower twice. That's twice that they are exposed to the risk of fall. It's twice they're exposed to that RF, and we all know that RF is cumulative. So the more we can limit that exposure, the safer everybody is and the less liability we have. Contractors and engineers are using drones for bridge inspections and roof assessments and post-disaster evaluations. I live down in Florida. I think we've had like 75 hurricanes in the last 4 years or something. I don't know, but they've all hit my house. So I might be exaggerating a little bit, but in all reality, I think we've had 5. Don't quote me, but I think we've had 5 in the last 3 years, because we had 3 last year and one before. So I think we've had 5 in the last 3 years. That's what I said. Yeah, I think we've had 5 in the last 3 years. Anyway, memory's getting away from me. We'll see how many we have this year. But post-disaster evaluations are huge in my area. And I know that if you live in the Midwest, I'm actually from the Midwest, I'm from Iowa, so tornadoes are a big thing. So having baseline data to assess after a tornado or to assess against after a tornado is huge. So it's not just because I'm in a hurricane state, also the sunshine state or the hurricane state, take your pick, but anywhere in the country, storms are storms, and storms do a lot of damage. So the post-disaster inspections or evaluations are critical, and having the baseline data is the foundation for being able to do a post-disaster evaluation. Even commercial property managers are using drones now to monitor building envelopes and HVAC systems and parking structures. Anything that you can think of that's expensive to go inspect but super simple to scan. So that's what we're using drones for. And anyway, all these cases, the data that the drone's capturing it's faster, it's safer, it's cheaper, it's more useful because it's permanent record. Now let's get down to numbers, right? So on average, drone inspections cut field time by like 30 to 60%. Could be more, could be less, but that's a decent average, 30 to 60%. And that's if you're doing repeat inspections on a place, whether it be a cell phone tower or a bridge or whatever, when you're doing repeat inspections, if you're doing them quarterly or semi-annually or annually, you're saving thousands of dollars in labor every year per site. So these are really big numbers. They really can add up pretty quickly. Let's not forget the reduction in safety risk, right? So no lift trucks, no scaffolding, no climbers, fewer insurance claims. Fewer insurance claims means less premium, a lower premium for your insurance. So every direction that you look at this, when we can increase safety and reduce risk, we reduce cost just in that. In addition to all of that, so there's so much to this. In addition to all of that, when we are doing regular inspections, because of the cost effectiveness of the inspections, we're actually much more likely to do them regularly, like we're supposed to. Whenever we see an issue pop up, we can get out in front of it, we can scramble and fix it, and that way it doesn't become a bigger problem, much more expensive problem later. Another benefit to all of this, again, we can just go on and on and on. Another benefit to all this is just digital records, right? I've already mentioned several times, but having the permanent records is key. I just had, I know this is kind of shifting gears a little bit, but I just had somebody email me this week actually, and say they needed a roof inspection. It's just their house, 1,800 square feet, pretty small house. They just want a roof inspection because they want to see if there's any damage up there from the last storm. They think there might be. Okay. I quote a price. She said absolutely. I give her a day, and we set up a date and time for me to come out. The very next day, she emailed me back and said, oh, I'm going to cancel because my friend's cousin's neighbor's uncle or whatever went up and looked at it. Okay. Cancellation received. I got you. But I stress to her, just as I'm stressing to you guys, because this isn't, I mean, this applies in every field, that it isn't, we're not doing the roof inspection just to see if there's something messed up. We're doing the roof inspection to give permanent record so that when an adjuster during the next storm wants to say, well, there's already damage there, so we're not going to pay for that, you can say, no, right here on April 6th, this is what my roof looked like. And now we have leverage to get the claim that we deserve. It's the exact same thing with infrastructures in the commercial world, right? Having the permanent record is key if we ever find ourselves during, in litigation or in an insurance battle, or God forbid somebody gets hurt or whatever. We have record of the condition of our infrastructure at a particular date and time. Okay, guys, I promised you that we would look at some digital twins. Here's a cell phone tower here. You can see that I can see this from any angle. Get down here and we can look at all of the ground tackle. Go up this tower. Again, any angle. Let's go up here to this array, and look, we can see behind every panel, in front of every panel, at any angle we want to look at it. If we want to look at the underside or the top side, it's all here. And what's more is when you look at this and you say, hey, I really want to dig into this right here. If we really zoom in, you can see that it kind of gets muddy and you can't really, the resolution is pretty good for a digital twin. But if you want to see this in more detail, if I just double click it, now it's going to show me all the images that have the thing that I clicked. Now we can go in here to the source image and we can look at all of the connections and all of the wires in this source image. So that's a cell tower. Hop over here to a bridge. Same thing. We can look at this from any angle. We'll look at the underside of it. Look at the overside of it. Zoom into it. And we can look in. Oh, look, here's some cracks here. Well, I want to look at the source images of these cracks. So again, just double click it. And here's the source image. You can see an annotation on here for those cracks. And we can go in here and turn on the cracks. These are just annotations that have already been made. And we can click on this. And now we can see the measurements all along this. And yeah, so again, as I was saying, permanent record. So now the next time this bridge gets scanned, we have all of these measurements that we can go compare the next scan to. Jump over here to power distribution lines or poles here. Again, we can really zoom in, and if I can figure my mouse out, yeah, okay, so let's say we really want to see this buckle or this attachment closer. We can double click it. Again, every image that has it in there will pop up. We can zoom into it, and we can really see in pretty fine detail. Like, we can almost read the number here on this plate. Jump over here to another example. This is a bridge. This is actually a railroad that goes across this bridge, and it looks really crummy on the outside, but the reason is because this inspection was the inside of the bridge. So this was done actually at night by a Skydio X10, and we can really get in here and look inside the bridge. This is just phenomenal. If you notice, if I go to take like a 90-degree view, the program is smart enough to get rid of this wall so I can see through it into this wall. And get in here, and again, when you get super close, you lose a lot of resolution, but if we just double click it, now, again, everywhere I clicked, or where I clicked, every image that has that spot is going to pop up down here. You can zoom in, and again, you might say, well, this resolution's kind of crummy, Rob. And I would say, remember, this was done at night. This is a night inspection. One last one here. Here's a railroad bridge. And again, we can look at it from any angle we want. We can zoom into it. And ooh, look at this stuff. I'm going to double click that. Now we're going to see all the images that has this in it. And we can really get in here and look at that. That doesn't look good. And let's see here. Loose concrete. Let's see what they have annotated. So this is all loose concrete above the walking area. Spalling with corrosion. We can throw that on. Just throw these off. So you can go in here, once this is annotated, and we just click something on, and it'll show up where it is. And there it is, right there. Let's take a look at that. Again, every image that has that in it, that's from that angle. Anyway, we can scroll through. Every image is available to us. So this is just the power of this photogrammetry software, building these digital twins and really being able to get in and get a high level view with the digital twin, and then also being able to go to the source images, being able to make the annotations. And again, as I said before, we can, since this is all digital, store it in a central location, and everybody has access to it. Okay, so again, drones aren't replacing inspections. They're just giving us a better way to work, right? Whether you're managing infrastructure for a city or a utility company or a private property portfolio, aerial inspections really, they cut costs, they reduce risk, and they speed up the decision making. And all of that is valuable to you as a business owner or a manager. You get better data, you get it faster, and you don't have to shut anything down to get it. That's the best thing. If your team is still climbing towers or walking ditches, it might be time to rethink how you're getting this data. One piece of infrastructure that I didn't mention at all anywhere in this episode is solar. And you might be asking, Rob, what about solar? That's infrastructure. How come you're not talking about it? Because solar is so involved that it's going to get its own episode. So 2 weeks from now, I believe that'll be April 20th. Sounds about right. So 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be releasing an episode on just solar inspections, which is great timing because, again, I live in Florida, and the solar inspection season is ramping up. The end of, well, probably the second or third week of April into May, I'm going to be out there doing a ton of solar inspections. So it just seems fitting to save the solar episode for when I'm actually doing the solar inspections. So anyway, if you like the information that you're getting here, please like and subscribe to the podcast. If you're on an audio only podcast, please subscribe there as well. But you might want to be interested in hopping over to YouTube so you can see the screen shares that I just did and the demonstration of the 3D software. But please leave comments. That actually really helps me out. I might need your help anyway, kind of deciding going forward here. You know, this first season of the Drone Advantage podcast has been all about how drones affect the bottom line for businesses. So it's really been my target audience has really been the managers, the superintendents, the business side of this. Now, of course, I'm getting all kinds of requests actually about how come you're not talking to the drone pilots. Well, I'm going to talk to the drone pilots. That's going to be in season 2. But before I wrap up season 1, is there anything else that you guys want to see? So, for example, I can do an episode on real estate photography if you would like, or commercial marketing. Let me know. Drop a comment down below and let me know if you would like to see episodes such as that. I've got this one. I've got solar coming out in 2 weeks. What do you want to see after that before I wrap up the business side of this and hop into the pilot side of this? So anyway, please drop a comment below if you find any of this useful, which I hope you do. Thank you for watching the Drone Advantage podcast or listening to the Drone Advantage podcast. We'll have all the links down in the comments to all of my socials. Stay above the noise and keep the business decisions below 400 feet.